couple of days ago, I had the great pleasure to have an idle and very enjoyable chat with Pawel Spychalski. If you haven't come across Pawel before, he's an INAV developer and currently the maintainer of the project, as well as being an FPV enthusiast. And he covers all these subjects, plus some other wild and wacky projects on his YouTube channel called, well, quite obviously, Pawel Spychalski. His channel and regular live streams are always entertaining and very informative. We had planned to chat for about 30 minutes, but inevitably it was nearly an hour. So I've split this into two palatable sized episodes. In part one, we talk about Pawel's first involvement in the FPV hobby and the INAV project, and he shares an insight into how the project is maintained and what we can expect in upcoming releases. And then in part two, we chat about his other projects, the demise of the single ESC, and the FPV and RC hobby in general. And don't forget to subscribe for notifications so you don't miss this second instalment. It really was great fun. And please do let me know in the comments if you find this WhirlyCast format any good. I guess I'll see from the view count, but it's always great to get some real feedback. And if it's at all popular, I can probably do some more. Well, if not, I'll probably just leave it. So, this is the Whirly Bloke Show, and this is Pawel Spychalski. Good evening, Pawel. How are you?
Hey Dave, I'm fantastic, and how about you?
I'm really good. Apart from being caught with the scammers on my YouTube channel the other day, I've been pretty good.
I heard about this, yeah.
So it's really nice to meet up like this. I know we've had a few email exchanges and a brief chat last week. I think we first spoke when you were asking about laser cutters quite a while ago.
Oh yeah, that was like half a year ago, something like that.
Something like that, because I use my laser cutter for so much, not just FPV stuff. It's but it's.
I wish I could. But I have no place around to put another big thing, that smoky thing that really
they
puts
smell.
a lot of.
They smell
yeah.
horrible. So, if you haven't, as my audience may or may not know who you are, but Pawel is the face of INAV. Not only is he a keen and enthusiastic multi-copter flyer, and I know you fly wings as well, but you're an INAV developer and what I think is probably the most important job, maintainer of INAV.
Yes, that what you said is basically correct. But talking about being a public face of INAV, this is kind of a coincidence. It's not that I started INAV. It just happened that I'm both a developer and I have the YouTube channel, so it kind of came out naturally. But I'm not Mr. INAV. Mr. INAV is Konstantin. He started this thing. I only follow through.
But I'm sure you'll agree with me. Being the maintainer controls the way that new functionality comes to the latest release of INAV. Because anybody can contribute and you can get all sorts of mad ideas that may lead you down a route that you don't want as a collective.
That's absolutely correct. Luckily, not luckily, depends how you look at it. The INAV is not that big of the software. So basically, if you contribute anything, there is 90% chance that your contribution will be actually merged. And so far, the cases when the proposed change is so revolutionary that, well, we are not sure if this really should go is rather an exception than the rule. But being the maintainer means that you decide of what goes in, what is rejected because of different reasons, like for example technical aspects, and when things are released, and keeping the eye on the project itself. Correct.
How did you first get involved with INAV?
That was, I think, a coincidence. This was back in the days when the clean flight was still a thing. and I was fighting with putting the GPS on lean flight, but it was not working. I mean, the position hold maybe was working somehow, sometimes, if not drifting into the tree, and then I had to recover the quad. But anything else was not working. And then I read somewhere that Konstantin Digital Entity, the guy who created INAV, started this project. And first I actually made a short interview for my webpage, but this is a long history. Let's not talk about that, with Konstantin. And then somehow I decided, well, I know something about programming. I'm a software developer for the best 20 years now. Maybe I could try to understand something and make some changes. So I started, and 6 years later, here I am.
So which bits of the code have you actually, were your main sort of like areas of contribution when you first started?
I think it was the OLED display. I think this was the first thing that I really improved and fixed. Then there was something about the rangefinders, but currently I'm mostly the guy that keeps the acro performance for the multi-rotors up to date in INAV. I'm just looking at what EmuFlight, what Betaflight and other systems are doing, and if this makes sense, I'm porting this thing to INAV. So if your quadcopter flies well with INAV, it's most probably because of me.
I'm one of them.
Fantastic.
I came to INAV probably 2 years ago, as I was starting to build larger quads, because I build quads for all sizes. Some are customer builds, some for myself. But I was just so impressed with how well INAV flies with 7-inch quads. It just seems so smooth to me.
This is partially coincidence, partially by design, because I also fly a lot of 7-inch quads. So let's say that the folds were kind of suited to work well on my quads. On the other hand, this is because, at least back then, because now it kind of changed, INAV with the default filtering, we kind of were less aggressive than the Betaflight. So back then, if you had slightly more beaten up propellers or just older quad, we were kind of taking this into the consideration. And this is most probably why yes, you might say that on defaults, INAV flies better on the 7-inchers than the Betaflight. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on under the hood that's not, as with all flight control software, there's a lot of stuff under the hood. But I think possibly some of that doesn't surface in the configurator in the same way. It's the INAV configurator has less knobs and switches on it, but of course they're all there for you to play about with in the CLI and,
That is a deliberate decision.
Yeah.
That is deliberate decision that I taken like some time ago, because at one point I just decided that too many options are not good. If you take a look at which, smartphones are considered as the best, it's the Apple, when you cannot do anything. And everybody says, oh, Android sucks. Not really true, because I'm the Android guy, by the way. But when we are talking about the simplicity of the setup, I personally think that you really should not change options that you do not understand how they work. And because in majority of the cases, you really do not have to change majority of the settings, why to even have the user interface for those settings if you're really not supposed to change them? And this is why in the last few years, a lot of settings were just removed, because we have analytics. We have analytics of what people are doing with the configurator, and if the setting is not touched with the 99% of the cases, then that means you just do not have to have the easy option to change it. And if you are really have to, there's always a CLI, and then be my guest. If you know what you are doing, then do it.
So if there's a new release of INAV planned, how is it a collective decision about what features are going to go into that next release, or does the buck stop with you? How does that work?
No, this actually we release everything that we get. Because like I mentioned some time ago, we are kind of small project. And that means that every contribution is welcomed and we do not have the liberty of like saying, okay, we don't want this, we don't want this, we don't want this. So basically we are trying to release more or less every 6 months. That means that there is a major twice a year. Maybe in the future we will like lower the pace slightly. But everything that comes into the code between the major releases, there's a 90% chance that we're gonna indeed release this thing with the next major. Because with the minor releases, like we released INAV 5.1 only recently, it's only like very specific fixes. It has to be compatible, it cannot break compatibility, preferably only bug fixes and maybe new targets, no features. But for the major, we release almost always everything that was contributed in that time.
And 5.1, of course, has got the target for the SpeedyBee F722 version 3, which is good because I'm using that in my current build.
I'm not using this yet. I do have one over there, and I'm planning to put it somewhere when only I will get some time.
But there is some new stuff coming from SpeedyBee.
Yes, I know, and INAV will support that.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about that, but the price on this new thing it's almost half the price of a 722.
I don't know about the price, but I should be getting samples pretty soon with the goal to have INAV supporting those new flight controllers, yeah.
And it's interesting because I think SpeedyBee are sort of becoming people's favourite flight controller. I don't know why. I think, there's a lot of nice things being said about it, and a lot of the other channels are doing a lot of tests on the version 3, particularly of the 722.
They keep the quality for sure.
Yeah.
They keep the quality, and I think this is because they are not really splitting themselves into the whole plethora of different models of the flight controllers. They do not have like 10 different flight controllers in the offer at one point. They have only one. Because if you try to buy V2 of the SpeedyBee right now, no, you cannot. I was even trying to buy one, by the way. Today I was looking on the different places in the internet. Impossible. Only V3. And this is usually a sign of the quality and of the company that thinks ahead. And let's be honest, let's do some advertisement on the pretty bee, but come on, let's be honest, this looks pretty. This is really a nice quality machining, even on the heatsink on the ESC. And if somebody sees something like that, which is nicely anodized with the nice stencil and a nice PCB and everything in a nice box, kind of reasonably priced still, then yeah, you have the quality product.
I'm sort of quite annoyed actually because my Cine Lifter build has got 2 of those ESCs in it because it's an X8. You can't see them.
No, you cannot.
I want to put a mirror in there or something saying, look at this.
It's absolutely pretty.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Definitely the nicest looking ESC I've seen so far.
And that's the first time I've seen a heatsink being put onto a 4-in-1 ESC by a manufacturer. Maybe that's my limited experience, but I've never seen
I'm not really sure if this is a heatsink. It kind of,
they claim it is.
Yeah. No, okay, it is. I say it is glued to the MOSFETs actually. I think I saw somewhere. But yeah, indeed, this is not very popular design choice. But come on, this bumps the price. We also have to remember about this.
Plus
any kind of the machining increases the price.
Of course, yeah. And what I like, and the same is true with this new secret one that I've got here, it's got a built-in TVS diode on the, which I tend to put those, I use the FetTech ones on most of my builds. Perhaps I'm just paranoid about blowing things up. But
yeah, most ESCs have the TVSs. So, yeah, but if you put another one, it's not really absolutely a problem.
No.
It only helps.
So, as you say, 5.1 has just been released, and I've actually done some trial flights of mine in the garden because I've been too busy on other things. What's happening? Are we going to have more minor releases for 5.1, or is the next release going to be a variant of INAV 6?
Most probably the next one will be INAV 6. We do not have any major bugs that we think that we should fix them for the release, and that means that a lot of people do not like to upgrade. And I know from talking with different people that even releasing twice a year is too fast of the pace for some, because people are still flying with the INAV 1.7. I know because I have analytics. I see which version are still connected to the configurator, not really used and flight, but really connected to the configurator, and there are still people on the 1.5. I think still, if not counting 5.0 as the most popular, there are still people actively configuring 4 and INAV 3. So, no, we will not be doing releases that often, if there is no really like a super need, because we found a critical bug that kind of makes your quad drop from the sky. So the next one will be the INAV 6, definitely.
And can you share any of the functionality that's lined up for version 6?
Probably the biggest thing for the INAV 6 will be track back return to home.
Oh, okay.
So your airplane, drone, or even the rover, a car, a boat, will be able to use exactly the same route to travel home that you made it go there. Of course, not if you are 10 kilometers and you made like 100 turns in the process. But this is something quite useful when flying in places when there are obstacles in the air. I'm not one of them because I'm, for example, I'm on the flats. There's no hills or anything like that. So for me, it's not a problem. But if you are living in the mountains or fly at least in the mountains, that definitely might be interesting.
So will that be following altitude as well as the route?
Yes, both the altitude and the direction. And what else? Really hard to say. Oh, this is a huge one. No, this is a huge one, and actually, I'm pretty sure that people will love it. Hardware in the loop is coming back to INAV. Okay, it was never in INAV, but you will be able to use your INAV flight controller as the actual flight controller in the X-Plane 11 simulator, I think. You just the flight control in the simulator of the airplanes can be done by the INAV flight controller nowadays. With a correct plugin installed everywhere with the third-party software, you can test INAV without flying. You are flying, but in the simulator, not really. So this is really something big. You can basically test different settings without risking your model. But for all the other features, everybody can find this by themselves. INAV is the open source. You can just go to the INAV repository on the GitHub. Filter by the milestone 6.0 and see what was already merged into the master branch.
Yeah, and I think that's and you on your channel do a very good series of announcements and the sort of like the main features of each release.
Somebody has to.
But I mean that's why when I said at the top that you are sort of like the public face of INAV. Yes, I agree. It's there are more people involved. But I think it's, I find beta flight development is a little bit more anonymous. People do pop up occasionally, on publicly. But you are, you're in the sort of flight controller world. You do have a public face, whether you agree with that or not. You certainly do.
This is, indeed. I'm kind of, let's say, the unique case because I'm both the influencer, however you're gonna call that, and I'm also the maintainer, the developer of the flight controller software. And this is not happening in case of the ArduPilot or EmuFlight or Betaflight. So maybe that. Is it a problem? I'm not really sure.
I think I'm sure there's some downsides.
Yeah, this I think helped INAV, and this also helped me. So let's say we have a nice symbiosis, and we both take something from it, both the INAV project and me personally.
I know that I get asked questions on my channel about quite niche sort of parts of INAV, about tuning and all sorts of things. So I generally tend to point people at your channel because you have a great sort of playlist of tutorials on INAV. And
Yeah, I do.
because you are a contributor and a maintainer, you know what you're talking about.
Sometimes. Well, usually. Yeah, most in the cases. Not always. Not always, though. I know that there are sentences that I should probably remove from some of my videos because they are no longer always true. But yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes,
You set a rod for your own back in many ways, because a lot of your tutorials are around, and there's a lot around INAV 3 and INAV 4. But is there a pressure to sort of update those tutorials for each major version that comes out, or do you think there's enough similarity to
people are indeed asking for me to do the updated version on the INAV on the drones, because I have a series on the INAV 3 that covers everything, but I always reply, no, just do how it was done in the INAV 3, you will be fine. There are no groundbreaking major changes in the setup, and this is true. We kinda, I think in terms of the basic flight performance and the acro performance of INAV, we kinda hit the plateau. Because previously we really had revolutions. We really had different revolutions, completely different approaches to filtering, completely different approaches to how PIDFF, whatever we're gonna call this, is structured. And there were releases when you basically had to change everything when you upgraded. Since INAV 3, so a year, and this will continue most probably to the INAV 6, there were no major groundbreaking changes in the setup, because the controller stayed the same. The filtering was only improved but not replaced with something new. The navigation changes, but those are rather the under the hood changes, not something that you have to actively modify. So if you have a well-flying INAV 3 quadcopter, most probably it will also, with almost the same settings, not always, because the D-term usually plays tricks on you. You can just copy everything and then it should working fine. So, like I said, there are no groundbreaking changes.
I think you'll agree Pawel is very well informed and entertaining, and knowing something about how the INAV open source project is maintained is fascinating. Do check out Pawel's channel that I've linked in the video description below. He is prolific in his content creation, so I'm sure you'll find something to keep you interested. In the second part, we chat about his other projects, plus a host of related FPV and RC topics. Don't forget to subscribe for notifications so you don't miss this second instalment. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.